Let's talk about vegetable seeds. Bet you didn't see that coming. Yeah, or you probably seen the bottom link and then you knew it was coming, but nevertheless, vegetable seeds, and permaculture. Uh, GMO foods, um, from what I've researched, I'm a little wary of them, and I think that's justifiable. Also, I've set a link up that you can use to make your own decision. Um, a lot of the studies done on GMOs originally were done by Monsanto. Now, Monsanto had a lot to gain in getting their seeds pushed through. Um, and so the studies were probably, from what I understand, sort of contracted out, but nevertheless it was indirectly connected to Monsanto originally. And from what they showed, it didn't seem to cause any problems. But do you trust it? Because the studies that happened that took place later suggested, roughly that for mice that they kind of got cancerous tumors and so forth throughout their bodies. Pretty scary stuff. And mice are pretty close to us, so this was on. They did like I think it was soy was one of them that they used. So GMO soy. They did some of the mice didn't eat any soy. Some had some soy or a moderate amount, and then some had a very high amount of soy. And those that had a lot of soy in their diet, they had a lot of health problems in the long term. And it is the case that we are getting more and more genetically modified foods into our cupboard. In fact, just recently, the Americans have been talking about putting GMO salmon out, and there's even some suggestive evidence that these salmon will start killing off each other, and like 20 generations could kill all the non-GMO salmon off. Pretty insane. It's a little different in the European countries. You have a lot more ability to know if you're eating GMOs, whereas in Canada and in America you can't research this very easily at all. It's almost impossible to know which foods are GMO and which foods aren't. One method, although very difficult, is to grow your own food. Now, I'm nowhere near supplying myself with my own food, but I take it I would really like to. I actually went down to Ecuador to try to learn some permaculture for a couple months, staying with the family there, and brought them a whole bunch of seeds and tried to learn some of their techniques. It was very interesting. So, getting seeds that are non-GMO do at least two things. They're not genetically modified, so you can trust in the fact that they've been ingested by humans for hundreds of years. You're not worrying about non-natural chemicals being induced into put into your body. And they replant themselves year after year, whereas many of these GMO seeds won't even replant themselves. Like, take these beans for example. They're Canadian Tire beans. They probably will only last one planting. If I took the seeds out of them and planted them again, from my understanding, a lot of these GMO seeds do not replant themselves. Now, you might have to look into that more, but that's my understanding. Anyways, permaculture is, an extraordinary thing, and I think if we weren't moving into a one-world government that has Illuminati ruling the world, we'd probably be already on top of this permaculture thing. But it roughly is the notion that you, fair care, fair share, people care, fair share, earth care, fair share, people care, fair share, people roughly. Look it up, permaculture. And it's It's the idea that you're trying to negotiate ethical well-being between yourself and the natural world, with yourself and other people, not overindulging on anything, kind of feeling like you have enough but not that much more than that, and merging systems, not only agricultural systems but technological systems, using the information that you have at hand to maximize energy input output. Beautiful system design in lots of regards, aesthetic systems. I'm actually currently working at Triac right now as a site coordinator, which deals with taking old wood waste and creating it, grinding it up and putting it into a hog fuel, and this maximizes the wood waste energy, whereas if it goes into the landfill, it just sits there and decomposes, but the energy is not really reused in the way that it could be. And they're actually talking about taking this wood waste and making it into hydrogen for cars. We had some chemists out not long ago, and they're seriously contemplating this. Just has to be the right size and the right content, chemically speaking. But I'll suggest one good permacultural book. Follow me yonder. This is the one that I like the most. It is Hemingway. It's called Guy's Garden. A guide to home-scale permaculture. I'll actually read his introduction to permaculture, because he's much better at explicating this idea than I am. What is permaculture? I refer often in this book to permaculture and ecological design, two closely related subjects on which many of the ideas in this book are based. Since permaculture may be an unfamiliar word to some readers, I should do some explaining. Permaculture uses a set of principles and practices to design sustainable human settlements. The word, a contraction of both permanent culture and permanent agriculture, was coined by two Australians, Bill Mollison and what was the other one? David Holmgren. Let's skip a bit. Permaculture began as a set of tools for designing landscapes that are modeled after nature, yet include humans. And this book, once we get the definition of permaculture out of the way, we'll focus on the landscape design aspect of permaculture. So this book is more on agriculture and landscape, not so much technology, but technology can totally be integrated, using solar photovoltaic cells and wind power and, interesting water movement systems, and he does a bit with water in here. But Mollison, Holmgren, and those who came up after them quickly realized that even if we learn to create farms, gardens, and landscapes that mimic nature, a sustainable land use that is embedded in unsustainable society won't prevent our tenure on this planet from being short, increasing impoverishment, or both. However, it turns out that permaculture's principles, since they are grounded in nature's wisdom, have breaking scope, far beyond permaculture's origins in agriculture. Permaculture has been used to design buildings, energy and wastewater systems, villages, and even less tangibly, structures for school curricula, businesses, community groups, and decision-making processes. It is an integrating design system. It's more on the objective landscape. To me, it doesn't, although, by designing these sorts of integrative systems, you have ethical fallouts and psychological growth fallouts. But it doesn't deal so much with, moral thinking. That is like hermeneutics, or developmental psychology, or spirituality. These sorts of things. These are more subjective. This is more of an objective approach to integrating some of the systems that we need to be integrating. So, continuing. However, it turns out that permaculture's principles, since they are grounded in nature's wisdom, have breaking scope far beyond permaculture's origins in agriculture. How does permaculture do this? Well, Though on one level, permaculture's practitioners design with organisms, buildings, and those less tangible things, they focus on objects themselves and creating careful design relationships and interconnections in establishing a healthy, sustainable whole. These relationships are what turn a collection of unrelated parts into a functioning system, whether it's a backyard, a community, or an ecosystem. If this is still a mite theoretical, here's a down-to-earth definition. If we think of practices like organic gardening, recycling, natural building, renewable energy, and even conscious decision-making and social justice efforts as tools for sustainability, then permaculture is a toolbox that helps us decide when and how to use those tools, baby. May the permacultural force be with you!